Hello and welcome to The Good, the Bad and the Worst, a podcast where we watch movie trilogies and series and decide which film is just fighting the world, just trying to hurt people. I'm your host Griner, and joining me today...
I'm Luke Morgan, and as long as you're talking, you're not listening.
And I'm dangerous, and I'm just going to turn off my brain and let my heart do the talking.
Boys, all our Rocky pods have led to this, the Creed trilogy. Obviously, Creed 3 just came out this weekend. We've all hotly just come out of the cinema. Had you guys seen any of these Creed movies before we started this Rocky trilogy?
I'll go first. The only Rocky movie I had seen in total of all the movies before this podcast was the first Creed, which I watched when it came out, and I'd seen everyone talking it up, how good it was. I was like, cool. I'd never watched the old Rockies because I didn't like Stallone, and I like Michael B. Jordan, so I was like, I'll check this out, and enjoyed it. It had been years since I watched it, so I didn't remember exactly everything that happened, or I had made up memories in my mind of how it played out. AKA, I thought Rocky died in Creed 1. He doesn't, which was a surprise when I watched it again. But the first one, and I always really enjoyed it, and just for some reason, I'd never gone around to watching the second one.
Yeah, similar. I had a similar thing. I'd seen Creed. I'd only seen Rocky Balboa and Creed. The whole mid-2000s were a weird time in movies. I was working at a video store, but I feel like I actually watched less movies somehow. I don't know why. And so I remember I saw this on DVD because simply I heard great things. And then I never saw Creed 2 either. And I don't know, I guess partially because Ryan Coogler, I wasn't attached. And I was like, that's never a good sign. But I guess, I don't know, 2018, I just didn't have time or something. Or I was busy.
Better things to do.
I guess so. But I only ever seen the first one. So it was cool to see them all back to back.
Yeah, I hadn't seen any of these films, but geez, I feel like I'm a big Michael B. Jordan fan now. That man can act.
Yeah, he's good.
Really good.
Ever since The Wire, I was there. I had my stock.
Yeah,
it's paying off.
It's good to see him and Barksdale together again.
Yeah, that's right.
In this trilogy. I was saying to Luke, I kind of wish Idris Elba had turned up at one point. He could be anyone. I don't care. Just put him in here somewhere.
He should have been coaching Jonathan Myers.
Is that no? He should have been Pretty Boy Conlon's coach because he's English.
True.
Oh,
we
had Graham McTavish.
He's a freaking specimen, that guy.
Yeah.
All right, let's kick it off with some stats.
Stats.
Creed 1, budget of $35 million, made $173 million worldwide. Creed 2, budget of $50 million, made $214 million worldwide. Creed 3, estimated budget of $75 million, and opening weekend $51 million worldwide.
It's pretty good.
Pretty impressive stats. The Rocky franchise lives on.
Yeah, it's just these films are interesting in the post-Marvel universe we've been ruining for so long. Like just to see another franchise, and even it's still a franchise, but it feels a little bit more independent, which is ironic because this is the 9th Rocky film technically, but nevertheless, it's just not a Marvel. It's not a superhero property. It's just it's a cool time to be like, they still do make money actually.
They referenced Wakanda in this, didn't they? I swear I heard that at some point.
They did. It was weird seeing the Fast 10 trailer before this and being like, oh yeah, there is other franchises out there, isn't there? Maybe that one's been around a little too long. Anyway, maybe we'll get to it one day. Critical reception, Creed 1, 82 on Metacritic, Creed 2, 66, and Creed 3, 74. How does that sit with you guys?
I think it's pretty accurate.
Not too bad.
Pretty accurate. I think I have to stew on 3 a bit longer before I give a fair attack. But
still early days.
I'd maybe bump them all up a few points personally, but let's get right into it. Creed 1.
Yep.
2015 movie. Not that long ago. These 3 movies have come out in 8 years. It's pretty wild. Yeah. The former heavyweight champion Rocky Balboa serves as a trainer and mentor for Adonis Johnson, the son of his late friend and former rival Apollo Creed. Boy,
good movie.
What an interesting spin-off from the Rocky trilogy. Rocky franchise, apologies.
This is how you do it. This is how you do a reboot and bringing back an old character or an established franchise and updating it for the modern lens, sort of thing. I feel like
It's a really good handling of that whole like let's say like they call they call it requels, like sort of legacy sequel of like reboots slash continuation. It's a really good way to handle it. Like I say, it's got the old there, so it still feels a lot like a Rocky film, but it also feels like a Creed film. It feels like he is the center. The story, the drama, the motivations, everything is centered on him still, and it's like it does feel like a really good natural progression for this to go. Okay, the main themes are there. The essence of a Rocky property is there. The underdog and all. Even though maybe he's not an underdog, but that's an interesting topic to look at.
Yep.
But like, still kind of like this guy trying to achieve what he can be and overcome adversity. And that's timeless, and that's all on display here.
Yeah. I'd never seen this before. I was fascinated by the story, like Adonis not being Creed's, not Creed's. He's Creed's son, obviously, but he's not. What's Mama Creed's name? I can't think of her name.
I don't know. He's not legitimate though.
He's not legit. He's not a legitimate heir to the title, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And kind of living with that. It's fascinating.
So, just question then. How do you feel about this? Like, obviously it's been years since Apollo was in like the Rocky movies, and he's in the universe, in the RCU of the Rocky Cinematic Universe, he's been dead for a long time. How do you feel about doing this thing of like, oh, he was unfaithful to his wife, and like, because that's obviously a bad thing to do.
Yeah.
And like, did that have any impact of you of like, oh, that tarnishes his personality or the type of person he is? If you go back and watch him with his wife in the first few movies, and then knowing that he's skipping out and doing that, does that change who he is, or does it not really have an impact for you guys?
Not really for me. I thought so. You're underestimating that in the 70s and 80s, everybody was just doing blow off crackers crackers and hookers. Like, it was everywhere. And so, one of the most famous men in the world at the time. Like, I don't think it would be weird if he wasn't being unfaithful. But beyond that, there is a real sense of
I didn't realize his mum was a cracker.
like he is like he's kind of not problematic, but there are these constant hints at him being so like he's super showy, which is just like he's clearly sort of he's got a huge ego. He's in love with his image. He perpetuates that, and every time he's not fighting, as you see in number 2, he's like he can't be happy because he's lost. He can't really see I think it's in 2. There's a part where he's in the pool and he's just kind of like as soon as he sees the news story, his wife like turns it off or something, and he's just like you can see he's obsessed. As soon as he hears like Rocky exists, he's like, no, I got to prove that I'm the man. And then in the third one, he's willing to die in the ring because he's like, I have to be true to myself rather than be alive for my family. He's like, no, I want to die a warrior. And it's like that's pretty selfish. Like, that's not a good thing to do. So to me, I'm like, he's never been Rocky. Rocky is the kind of guy. If you found out Rocky was unfaithful to Adrian, holy, that would have pulled the rug out from under you. But for Apollo, at least
him in Apollo. All their training
after that fight,
in them shorts on the beach.
And there was definitely something there.
That was just dudes being bros.
Guys being guys. Like I think if we'd had a love story like we get with Rocky, starring Apollo, it would be super weird. If if there's a Creed spin-off in the future and we find out that he'd been unfaithful to Bianca, I feel like that would be a little bit of a punch in the guts, right?
Man,
like that would tarnish his image. Yeah. But because we don't have that context, there's not even that many signs that they have a super great marriage, really. Like, I mean, she's not much of a character in the Rocky movies, really. She's more there in the crowd to scream when he's getting killed in number 3. Yeah, I did think about that a bit, Luke, but it's a great setup for this, and her taking in Donnie is, I mean, props to her for carrying on his legacy, even if it wasn't with her.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Did you find it hard to get past Luke? Or?
No. It wasn't even like a thing. It was just like, oh, that's interesting that's the direction. I had this whole thing. I was like, oh, Rocky didn't know he had a son with like like because Rocky's fallen out of contact with his, Apollo's wife and all this sort of stuff. And I hadn't remembered that it was like outside of their relationship sort of thing that was where Creed was from. I did have a feeling that I feel like, I wanted your opinion on it. Like, I feel like Apollo doesn't have much of a presence in Creed. Like, it's more like Creed and Rocky and like this. I felt like they don't really talk about Apollo much, or like it's not like we see. Obviously, we don't get flashbacks of him because we've got the movies with him and stuff like that. But it felt like it took a while to be like, oh, there's a photo of him, like, and he's like, look at him in like, or talking about his father or stories about his father. Like,
he's like he's watching his dad on YouTube a couple of times at the start and stuff like that. Like, it's not that he's not
true,
but you're right. He's not a big part of this story.
No, and I guess he didn't know him, so it's not like this. They're trying to make him all live up to this thing. So yeah.
I feel like it does a good job. All the Rocky movies do. They have good jobs of like creating specters, like sort of these presence that you, or not presence, but like a sort of an unknown fact of like someone exists out there. Like even Drago in this, I felt was a little bit. I'm like, what happened to him? And you kind of like, obviously you get that in number 2, and I just feel like there's, and like you're like, where's Rocky's son? I feel like all these movies do a good job of really getting you engaged with people that exist outside of it, and then it kind of leaves you to wonder why we have the characters in the situation that we're in. And to me, I was like, Apollo felt like that in the first Creed. There was a real sense of, they never like, what's your father mean to you? And it's like, oh, I never knew him. Like, there's never like explicit like, oh, I got to talk about my dad. It's just like, but everything he does is sort of motivated by that as well. Yeah. He's motivated by the lack of a name. He's sort of the pursuit of the spirit of his father, but not the name. He doesn't want to just be known as Creed to get a leg up.
Yeah.
And like there is this clear sense that he needs to prove himself in that shadow, but come out of it. Like, and Rocky's whole engagement is like because of that. So I kind of like that we don't get too much like flashback or overt conversation. He really is kind of like this unseen ghost, and it's like Ryan Coogler's really good at tapping into like just emotion about stuff and the sort of the nuance. And to me, like that's one of the big things that he does in this is there's just this sense of these characters feel really real. And it's like you don't need to know. They don't need to tell you their thoughts and feelings just because they kind of feel like they're natural. And that to me of like Apollo feels like his presence is sort of everywhere in this because you've got all the peripheral characters who are engaged with him. And I'm like, that's a good way to sort of, I guess, display the, display the absence. Like that Adonis has an absent father. He never knew him. And to me, I'm like, he always exists there, but we never ever get an explicit sort of detail. I'm like, that's cool. I like that.
Yeah. I'm glad they didn't go down the path that Rocky Balboa kind of does of his son, living in the shadow of his father or anything like that. Like, not explicitly like we do in that movie. I mean, not that it's handled well in that movie, I don't think, but it's definitely an element they've explored a little bit in this franchise before. So, you're right. It's nice as like this, this Spectre story.
I really like I feel like this is Stallone's best Rocky movie, like with him in it, sort of thing. Like,
he's really good in this. Yeah,
it's great. Like, just I don't know. Like, obviously now watching all the Rocky films and knowing all these things, like seeing him bounce the ball, I'm just like, he's got the ball still. Like, this is cool. Like, look what he's doing, and he's like back to that, and just being this person that's like the only one left. Like everyone that we know from those Rocky movies are gone, and this old ghost that's still there, that he feels like has lived on too long past that, and he's ready to accept death once it's coming knocking on his door. He's like, okay, cool, I'm all right with that. He says to the nurse like, oh, I'm okay with that. He keeps fighting for Creed. Creed obviously forgets about him throughout the trilogy and he disappears.
Yes.
But we'll get to that later.
Bit of a problem.
But yeah, I thought Rocky was great in this. I still own. Yeah.
So I didn't know. I found out, in research briefly that his son died during pre-production of this movie, and so this was kind of like So Coogler eventually convinced him to come back because he wasn't sure if he would.
Stallone, wasn't it?
Yeah. So that's his oldest son, I believe. And and Stallone ended up saying afterwards, like this helped him cope with that death. Like this sort of helped him grieve and process that because it's obviously dealing with that father-son story. I think that's I think he's tapped into that, right? Like, I think his performance in this is very sort of melancholy and somber and really, but also not like overt. It's also like you say, it's just this guy who's at the end of his life, and he's like, he's kind of happy with what's happened. He's had the best. He had Adrian, and he was the heavyweight champion of the world. But he's just like, yeah, now I've got nothing, and he's like, it's really somber. It's like I think he's totally like tapped into his own trauma there, and that's what brings out the best in actors generally when they get that emotion, they bring it to the surface, and like
Yeah.
Because I think you're right. I think this is probably his best performance as Rocky.
Yeah.
She's saying something because I think he's great in the first one too.
I think he's good in Rocky Balboa as well. I like him, and I have a lot more respect for Stallone after these movies, like after the whole lot of these movies. But yeah, I really enjoyed his and Michael B. Jordan's like chemistry together. They work really well.
Calling him Uncle all the time.
Yeah, Unc. I love when he goes to live with him, and he's in Paulie's room, and he's like he's finding his pornos. There's a weird robot in the cupboard.
That's literally, I was waiting for the robot to show up. I was like, oh, come on.
It would have been a good touch.
I was like, the robot's got to be in his cupboard. I was like, this is what this is leading up to. He's going to open a cupboard and be like, what the hell is this thing? And it's going to be like, Paulie.
Have some staining on it. It's like, what's that?
Paulie was an old weirdo. So Sage Stallone was the one that played his son in Rocky V, the teenage son.
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's sad.
Yeah, and it seems like a pretty really sudden. Like he was young and from a heart attack.
Yeah.
I think we mentioned. What did you guys think of like Michael B. Jordan in this? Like, did you guys know him much? Really? Anything he'd done before?
Chronicle, man.
Yeah. Good film.
I'm a diehard Chronicle fan. Like I love that movie so much. So I'd known him from that. I had this friend in high school that kept going on about a show called The Wire. I hadn't really listened to it or checked that out, but no, I hadn't really known too much of him before then. So no, this was just him, and he was great. I thought, especially I think as the movie goes on and he opens up a bit more, it's definitely like that abandonment and like the stuff that he's gone through in his childhood and everything like that, and his conversations with Rocky towards the end of the movie I think are pretty powerful and well acted as well.
Yeah, there's I don't know, I'd seen all of his other stuff before this, so love him in The Wire. Obviously he's great in that, but Killmonger is like the best part of Black Panther, the best thing to come out of Black Panther. Easily. And I mean, there's some real Killmonger vibes in here in places. Obviously, Coogler's involved in this as well. But like where he's in the ring and he does this primal yell, and it's very very similar to when he's fighting Black Panther in that movie. But yeah, I don't know, chills. I really enjoy him. I think he's great.
Yep.
He's becoming like a real kind of. He's becoming a movie star, right? Like I don't know. I feel like there's, at least in my mind, it's a real consciousness of the death of the movie star. We don't really have them anymore in terms of like, you don't have movie stars like you did back in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
Like you have like you can't really sell movies on people anymore. Like we had Bullet Train with Brad Pitt, and it's like that should have sold 10 years ago. That would have sold like gangbusters, but it didn't. And, Mission Impossible sells because of Tom Cruise, but he's kind of the last one who really can do that. Besides that, like think of actors of this generation. This isn't an old man yelling at a cloud. This is like a Chris Evans and Ryan Gosling with The Grey Man. It's like these guys should have sold that movie, but
Chris Pratt, Super Mario. People are actively against it, even though he should be a movie star, right?
Exactly. Like we don't have this. Yep.
Even people who could have been considered maybe a while ago, those actors aren't doing it anymore. Like you said with Brad Pitt, but it's completely, the name of the movie is escaping me now. Matt Damon, Ben Affleck in The Nights, Being All Nights and Blonde, and
the
woman
the
getting
Last Jewel.
The Last Jewel. They couldn't do anything for that movie. And they're two big stars.
Exactly. It doesn't really happen, but like these are kind of one of the only films that I can think of that are doing this now. Like these movies live and die on. Like the posters are literally just Michael B. Jordan looking ripped as hell.
Yeah.
And they're very, these movies exist and you know what you're going to get. You know exactly how a Rocky or a Creed film goes generally. They hit the beats. It's an underdog story. There's going to be a sick montage. There's going to be a great fight at the end. And I'm like, this guy is, I don't know, I never expected him to be, especially in The Wire where he's still pretty young.
Yeah.
It's like, I didn't expect him to be, but like he's well on his way to be like one of the great movie stars of his generation, if not one of the greatest. He's he's super charismatic, I think, and he's really kind of got that like presence. And someone else comes into this franchise later who's also got presence. But
I mean, like, just to go back to Chronicle for a second, but like you watch that film, and I come out of that being like, Dane DeHaan is going to be the star of the next 10 years in cinema, and
look what happened to him.
And then he played Green Goblin. It's Amazing Spider-Man 2, and it all went downhill from there.
He made some bad choices.
That's rough.
Michael B. Jordan made some right choices, so good on him.
Yeah,
I don't remember the third dude so he's much, but I remember there was a third kid. Yeah,
there's some other guy in that movie, right?
This movie felt I don't want to be weird about this, but it felt blacker to me, like than the other, and like I appreciated it. Right, like obviously there's a Coogler influence there, and like people came out with Black Panther to really support it because of its African American representation, which is great. But man, why aren't people talking about this movie more? Is my opinion. Like, it's full of black actors, obviously, and there's just some awesome performances in this movie, in my opinion.
I had the same thought, like watching the third one as well just today. I was like, these movies are black movies. Like they are very, with the exception of Stallone, who's kind of the, and some people involved in the fighting circuit. Like it's all about, this black guy and the sort of community around it. And like, because the OG Creed is really, it really taps into like the place, like a really, it sort of taps into it's Philadelphia, right?
Yeah.
It's Philly.
Yes. It taps into Philadelphia again, like in the same sort of way as Rocky did, but it taps into the sort of like the black community there.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm blanking on her name.
Tessa Thompson?
Yeah, what's
Bianca?
Her? Bianca. Like she's obviously involved in the music scene, and so she's the one who introduces. She takes him to that cool sandwich place where they make Philly cheesesteaks. Like they do a really good job of fleshing that out and be like, this is kind of the black community here, and he's part of that. Actually, I agree. It's weird that there's
people on quad bikes and motorbikes everywhere.
Yeah, which is kind of dumb but super cool.
Yeah,
like I agree. Yeah. It is a bit sad that this gets overshadowed by Black Panther as like the quote unquote black film that really did so much.
Everybody can be Oscar nominated Best Picture, like Black Panther.
That's true. That's true.
there's the fight in the middle. I love, like, it's a one shot.
So good,
and it's just so well done. And like the way the camera follows the fighters, and like as he gets knocked out, it just droops down with him. We've seen a lot of boxing matches in 9 movies, but like this takes it to another level, in my opinion. Like it's really,
so he actually
really well
took
done.
That punch. Hey, because did you guys know this?
No.
That punch where it goes super slow mo and he like falls straight down. He gets punched that hard.
Oh, really?
And takes it. There's footage of Stallone uploading a clip from his mobile phone on Twitter back when they were filming it, being like taking it like a champ, blah blah. And there was all this stuff about it because you can't ask an actor to take a punch for real. Yeah. So Coogler, there's all these interviews about it, and it might be seems a bit like I was peer pressured into it. Not great, but I was peer pressured. So Coogler got Stallone to basically convince him that he should take the punch. And you watch it, and they're like getting it set up and like practicing, like, okay, 3, 2, 1, and then he just swings and punches him right in the face, and he falls to the ground, knocked out. And they get that shot of the slow mo of him getting punched. Because
it's pretty dope.
My wife and I had this big discussion. She was like, "How did they get that done?" I was like, "Has to be some sort of CGI, them flinging their face around." And then I googled it, and then came across the clip and all this. He actually got punched in the face really hard. And I'm like, "Wow, commitment."
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah,
I mean, you see that in all the Rocky movies. The best parts are like, there's all those stories about them, like Stallone and Dolph Lundgren. They're like they're punching for real, going pound for pound. Like,
yeah,
it's like I don't. Some of it's probably bullshit, but some of it probably is true, and you get really good fights when that happens.
Yeah.
I forgot that middle fight scene was like a one take.
Yeah,
and so coming into it, I was like, holy crap, this is phenomenal. This is so good. And I was breathless after him, like, because I forgot that Coogler was such a talented filmmaker. He gets so much praise. Obviously being like called like an auteur for his time, and obviously really important for what he's done for black cinema and with Black Panther. But I'm like, Oh no, he is actually just really, really good as well. Like there is a reason people love him. He got this job and he's made a difference. Like he makes good films, and holy
Yeah.
crap, just some like just the like I said, the personal sort of involvement. Like some of the shots in this where he sort of follows people around. Some of the ways he frames like Adonis when he's sitting in prison or when he's waiting, like there's just so much like he feels really intimate, and the one take helps. Like you feel like you're there in the fight with him. And it's just like he really creates a great sense of community and of like personal engagement with everything that's going on. It's really good.
And like I said earlier, I love Graham McTavish, so he's always great. Anytime he shows up, I really like him. And I like how they end like he doesn't win. Like I like them when they do this sort of thing where it's like, oh, he could have won if it was a bit longer or whatever, but
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
underdog doesn't always have to beat like the champion in like his first fight or whatever. Like you got to be. It's kind of like as a realistic thing of it, or like he pushed him to the distance or whatever. And the
Yeah.
Rocky movies do that every now and again, where it's not the classical underdog story if he comes back and wins and stuff like that. It's different, and I like it.
Yeah. It's
I mean,
a perfect.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I was
No,
gonna say
you
it
go.
is the exact same ending as Rocky 1, right? But
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it works really well here, and it's a good callback to that.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a perfect way to approach that. Like it's the requel thing. It's like it does the same thing, but it doesn't feel like it's just copying it. It feels appropriate and earned. And like, yeah,
Force Awakens.
yeah, like basically, like yes, that's a good film. That's one of the best Star Wars films. Screw anyone who thinks otherwise. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's exactly right. Like they do, it catches the essence, and he could have won, and that could have made another interesting choice. But it's like no, this is the right one, and it makes it better because it's like this is a sequel to Rocky in a way. So that's nice. It's really tapped into the same essence, but it's not the exact same thing. It's like they found new ground to rehash that. Like it feels super appropriate, and so that's really wise. Like this movie doesn't feel like it's. I guess one of the big differences with this and with a lot of franchise stuff is this Creed doesn't feel made in a. It doesn't feel like it's made in a producer's office somewhere, right? It doesn't feel like they were like, man, how can we make more money out of a Rocky franchise? It genuinely feels like there was probably an idea of that somewhere, but Coogler or somebody, I think he wrote it as well. So double check that before I do it. Yeah, so he wrote the screenplay along with another guy, Aaron Covington. But I can only imagine he came out, he had an idea. He's like, there's a really great story here in this community with this guy, and like this film feels like it's wanted. It feels genuine. Like he had an idea and he created it. It wasn't like conjured up as okay, we cast this hot young actor and we hit the right beats and we'll just make money off it. It's like no, there's a story here, and this movie deserves to exist.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anything else anyone wants to say about Creed 1? I felt more connected to Creed than any of the other characters when he was needing to nervous shit. That's
Different.
Are you a nervous shitter?
I am a nervous shitter, absolutely.
And I like the callback to it in the second one as well. With
Yeah.
Tessa Thompson knows that.
Yeah.
You good? You good? Yeah. Yeah.
All right, Creed 2. Under the tutelage of Rocky Balboa, newly crowned heavyweight champion Adonis Creed faces off against Victor Drago, the son of Ivan Drago.
I was not expecting a sequel to Rocky 4, but
Yeah.
wow.
I think people love Rocky 4 a lot more than you love Rocky 4.
It's
think that's right.
iconic. It's
No,
like,
I'm the thing. I knew coming into him like Rocky. He's got the stairs and he ends the cold. Those were the two
Ends the
things
Cold
about
War,
Rocky that I knew. So I know that you're right, but I think it does have a soft spot in so many people's minds, more than it deserves.
Like
Yeah.
I think just aesthetically and just Ivan Drago is like the perfect villain to verse an
That's
American.
true.
Like his hair, he's got everything. He's
But like
12 foot tall.
Yeah, he's an absolute unit.
he is. But like when you guys finish that movie, you're like, boy, I hope we get continuation of this story.
Look, I think it works for the most part. Like, is this the best of the three? No. But I think Son Drago is a good character for him to fight. Like, and you say, as you say, the spectre of Drago's mum/wife is fascinating. Like, it's an interesting relationship. There's a few interesting moments there in this movie that I really, really enjoyed.
Yeah.
Like to me, half this movie is really good, And I think there is a really great, like, every part with the Dragos and with their sort of investment, with their confrontation with Stallone,
Yep.
like, that's the best part. And the whole time I was watching, I'm like, this is actually a fascinating idea. Like, what happened to Ivan after that defeat?
Yeah.
And like it like, his son's eating gruel for breakfast before they go train, and it's like they live in this horrible Ukrainian apartment, and they're just like they've got nothing because they lost, and so
Kicked out of
the
Russia.
country, the country just owned them up. That's so cool. That's actually really cool, and it feels like he's kind of the one who deserves to win in a lot of ways. Creed almost doesn't really deserve to win in this, and the whole time I was like, I want more of this story. I really wanted more of Ivan, and I don't know. I guess I want another layer to it, because it plays second fiddle to Creed's personal drama, and his personal drama in the second one I don't think is nearly as good. Like, there's definitely some good things.
Yeah,
I think his whole the stuff with his, where she gets pregnant and they find out they're gonna have a daughter who's probably gonna be deaf as well.
Yep.
And just those usual things of like, what is legacy after this sort of, after his essential victory, like what does that look like? That's all interesting, but yeah, the whole time I'm like, man, this Ivan stuff is fascinating, and seeing Rocky have to confront that is cool. And that, like, I really wanted more of that.
The moment of Dolph and Stallone in the restaurant, and like,
it's cool.
It's cool. There's no pictures of Drago up on the wall. Like, that's a chef's kiss. That's a great touch. Like, I love all these little character moments between those two. It's really, really good.
He points at the photo as he's leaving, and he's like, "That's good. That's a good one." And it's Apollo, and it's like, oh, rough.
Yeah. Oh man, like, that's the thing. My favorite parts of this is everything with the Dragos.
Yeah.
There's a few scenes with Creed and Rocky in this where it feels like a real gut punch, where he's like, blaming Rocky for the death of Apollo, and like when he's having his argument with him and casting him out, I'm just like, oh man, that's rough. Like every time they have a disagreement,
telling Rocky's all alone, like, shit, man.
Yeah.
Every time they have a little disagreement, Michael B. Jordan just like cuts Rocky deep, man, and
Just
discards
twists
him.
the knife
Like,
a bit
Jesus
more.
Christ.
Easy. That was my big issue with it. Like, his whole motivation, right, is like, I'm being challenged. I have to defend myself. And Rocky's like, look, I screwed up once and your dad's dead because of me. And he's like, you shouldn't fight this guy. It's like, yeah, Rocky, you've won. You're Rocky's the one guy you should listen to about who to fight and who not to fight. He's taken 10,000 punches to the head. He knows what's up. Yeah. And like you say, Michael B. Jordan, Creed's his name. He's just like, screw you, Rocky. You're the worst. You were never there. You killed my dad. It's like really, you're just trying to defend your title and you're flipping it. It feels kind of rushed, and kind of like they need him to be angry and engaged. And it's just like he's gone from 0 to 100 really quickly.
And I mean, of all the characters, isn't Rocky the one that has done this like 3 times as well? He's taken on the fight he should never have taken on to defend either his honor or Creed's honor or whatever. Like, he's just, I mean, and fair enough, Rocky can say, you shouldn't do this, but he should know better than anyone else that he's not going to, Creed's not going to back down from this. And for him to have the best chance, he should be
months to go to Russia for ego purposes.
Like, yes, but like, what does Rocky have to show for it as well, right? Like,
several world championship belts. Like,
they didn't bring him any happiness. He still has no Apollo.
Yeah.
Like, that's what's interesting about Rocky's whole thing, and like, that's what Rocky brings to this. That's why you need Rocky in this franchise. We'll get to it, but he brings that constant reminder of like, look, all the stuff you're feeling is fair. I've done it, but he's like, look, it doesn't do anything for you.
Look at me, I'm miserable.
And that's literally it. He's like, literally, look at me. He's like, I run a restaurant, and everyone I know has died, and I'm brain dead essentially because of all the beatings I've taken.
Yeah.
Like, it's not worth it. And so you're right. He's the one guy who's like, look, you're going to fight anyway. But the whole trilogy almost, or the first 2 at least, are very much about that, like, don't perpetuate the cycle. Don't do the same dumb stuff that your dad did. Kind of don't be the same person, or, try be the best version, I guess you can. And so it feels really, I think Rocky's totally in the right to be like, do not do this. And so then for him to do it and win, I don't know. I feel there's a little bit of it's like, nah.
Well, he does it and loses.
He loses. He wins.
He wins by disqualification. Yeah. Which is a nice touch too. Like, that's a new thing for the Rocky franchise. We haven't had that before.
true.
that. I mean, the fact that fight took place in our arena is like, well, obviously he's not going to win this fight. Like,
I said the same thing to my wife. I was like, we've got an hour left.
yeah,
He ain't winning this.
no,
Yeah.
Like, this is going to end bad for
Yeah,
Creed.
they dip into that well again later. Is this movie better if Drago kills Rocky in the restaurant?
There was a part of me because I was
Yeah.
like, I swear I had this thing of Rocky dying. I was like, oh man, is he going to punch him here in the restaurant? Like,
Hell, let's take it further. He displays Rocky's body in the restaurant, like ties him up. Creed comes to get some spaghetti, and bam, there's just this dismembered Sylvester Stallone there. He's like, all right, now I get why you need to fight, right? Like, is this movie better with that? I say yes.
But also, they'd probably be in jail, so he probably couldn't fight him. He'd have to get arrested and go into jail to fight him in jail.
It's like the
doesn't match. Yeah.
And that's where you find Jonathan Majors. Hey man.
No, the Dragos flee back to Ukraine, and it's like, okay, we've got to go and fight him in there, and it's just it's an actual Rocky 4 sequel.
Sure.
I don't know.
Again, like as you say, Drago's the most interesting thing. Someone finally threw in a towel in a Rocky movie, and that's
awesome.
That was a really good ending for that character.
Drago throwing in the towel, and then like obviously his son being pissed off at him for it, and him being like, "It's okay." Like,
yeah, that's
an awesome moment for Drago, and for him to be like, I know your mother abandoned you and my wife abandoned us. I know it's just us two. Hey, it's okay. I understand what you're doing, but I'm going to protect you because we are all that we've got.
That's all they're good.
So it's weird. It's weird that the emotional moments hit harder when it's the Dragos. Like all the stuff going on with Creed and Rocky feels a little overdone. I didn't mind Bianca and his baby being deaf. Like that's a nice little conflict for them. Like a thing for them to have drama for them to have to deal with.
Or him to do.
And I was like, oh, he's taking the baby to the gym. He's actually, he's going to be a present father. He's not going to take off to Russia for months without his kid. And then the next scene, that literally happens. I'm like, do we not learn anything?
And she's there too. And I'm like, where's the baby?
I'm like, at least she's home with mum. No.
No.
Oh, well, at least his grandmother. No, she's there too. Everybody's in Russia except the baby.
Yeah.
It's home with the robot again. The robot shows up again. She's just like, looking after kids again.
Oh gosh!
How did you guys?
The robots never come back again.
Yeah, I wish it would make an appearance. I really do.
It's the cameo.
How did you guys feel about the desert training? Rocky 4, it was in the snow. This time we're going to the desert to train to go to Russia.
Anytime we get to do a new visual world, I'm happy.
You're okay with it?
I like it. It's stupid when he's like, "This is where the hardcore trainers come." It's like, why?
Why is this the first time we've been here? If this is the best place to go,
The next one, like that's what I kept expecting. The third one being like, all right, let's go underwater. This is where the real hardcore, and they're like under there punching.
Yeah.
Like, there's always a new place that's like, okay, we're gonna step it up a level. Out on the International Space Station.
We've got to go to Mars. The gravity's heavier. It'll train you good. This trilogy is going to become Dragon Ball Z eventually.
Eventually. I was expecting that in the third one.
Like, 0G training. Here we go.
This is the time chamber. 400 years worth. Yeah, I don't know. Like these movies have a long history of absurdity. Though, like say, training in Russia, it's kind of the reason why I think Creed 1 stands out compared to 2 and 3 is like it's super grounded and its extreme is they train in he does the running in the back streets of Philly. And so this is just a weird place where he's like, I know that some people train here as well. So yeah, that's fine. It's another gym in Philly, whatever.
Yeah.
But then so when they're like, we're going to go to the desert and train, it's kind of dumb, but it's in the same realm.
Yeah.
The weirdest thing to me was that they were going in the desert and doing all this training to then go fight in Russia where it's really cold. I was like, shouldn't they be going to like Antarctica or some shit to fight?
I don't think it's the climate that they're after. They're not like we need to.
No. But that's what people should be doing. They should be training to get adjusted to the climate. So I thought, man,
it's
put him in the meat locker where
arena.
Rocky used to train. Yeah, I don't know.
I'm surprised we haven't gone back there actually.
Where's been the cows?
Why isn't any of this meat getting tenderized?
No,
that's true. Yeah, that's a good point. Well, Paulie's dead, so they have no in.
It was all through Paulie. Yeah.
It was, right? Like Rocky went there.
We went,
Yeah.
yeah, we
He's
went.
like, hey man, can I punch some cows? And like,
There's
no,
like-
what the hell, man?
like-
That's safety hazard.
we've told you, Rocky, no, you can't punch the meat. He's like every
In
time.
15 years, Rock, stop asking us.
We, FDA updated the rules.
Just goes down to a paddock on a farm, starts punching some live cows.
All right. I love the tradition of the person with the big showy entrance loses. It's always good. It's always good. Although Bianca performing at the end was... I'm glad she was in his corner, but that was...
It
I wanted to
felt
ask-
weird.
Yeah. Is Bianca a good musician? Is her music good?
She's got lots of gold records or some shit, apparently.
Apparently. Now this is what really suspended my belief. I don't know if I just don't get her music, but all the songs you see of her are really bad. And I'm like,
I thought they were all fine, but they weren't for me, I guess is the
yeah,
answer.
maybe that's just it.
Her singing in the entrance took me out of it a bit.
Yeah,
like
it
it
was
just felt like,
yeah.
okay, this is weird. Like you can tell it's lip sync, which obviously it's lip sync, but like it just feels weird in this arena. It doesn't feel like this cool thing, you know? Like I don't know. Should have had Stallone singing or something. I don't know. It's the eye of the tiger or something. Bring that song back.
Yeah, it's upsetting we don't see that or Gonna Fly now. Do we see? I don't think we see that in any of them, do we?
No.
No.
We just get the
Yeah.
Rocky theme.
We get the Rocky
Weird.
theme at the end of the final fights all the time still.
Yeah.
Briefly, but
That kind of bums me out a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Eye of the Tiger would be a good throwback, I think.
like, do a hip hop version of it.
Yeah, update
Make
it.
it modern.
Set on the nose. I don't know.
No, man, do it.
Yeah, I think it's fun.
We got some closure on Rocky and his son. His grandchild looks just like Adrian. Like, man, that kid looks like Adrian.
Yeah, good
Casting.
casting.
Yeah.
Casting,
Or
man.
CGI, I don't know which one.
Deep
No,
fake.
CGI back then would look way worse.
Probably.
That's a good
4 years
question.
ago,
What-
but sure.
Why do you guys think he couldn't see his grandkid? Because he constantly is like, I can't. He's like, why do you, they keep saying, it's like, why do you pick up the phone? Why can't you? He's like, it's not that simple. Like, why do you think?
What was the conflict that caused this?
Yeah, like there's no answer. I think it's probably just the whole like, I don't know, it's probably just his nature. But like, why do you guys think?
No, he probably found out about him and Apollo.
What?
I don't know.
I think. I mean, look, you could play it back to his son was trying to escape his father's shadow, and the best thing Rocky could do for him was to not be around and cast that shadow. But that feels like a weak excuse 20 years later or whatever. Like, well, not even that long. 5-10 years later.
Yeah.
Be a grandkid.
And like he talks a lot about it, how important family is and how it's everything, and how he talks how he clearly loves his son. It's just it's felt a bit strange. He's always like, yeah, I love him to death, blah blah blah. He's like, but why do you call it? It's just hard. What kind of excuse is that, Rocky? Your restaurant sucks. Just go see your kid.
Hey, his restaurant's probably fine. Would
But,
you
like,
go to
no
that
one
restaurant?
Of course I would, because I'd be like, tell me some boxing stories. And,
Yeah.
I got up there in the ring.
We never see the lady from Rocky Balboa that's running the restaurant with him again, do we? Because that's not her.
It wasn't her
in Creed, is it? No.
Yeah, okay.
No, her story's done. She achieved enlightenment, went to another planet.
Oh, true.
She's good.
So I don't know.
Rocky's like, Rocky's the wise old man who he has to suffer, but he fulfills everybody else around him.
Yeah, exactly. Relatable. All right.
All right, Creed 3. Adonis has been thriving in both his career and family life, but when a childhood friend and former boxing prodigy resurfaces, the face-off is more than just a fight.
So, Michael B. Jordan's directorial debut.
What a debut in my opinion. Like, debut.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a hell of a movie. I really enjoyed this one.
Yeah. Stallone was great in it. But as directorial debuts go, like what a film to do it in. And it definitely feels different than the other two films. It definitely feels different than any of the other Rocky films even. And I really like that. I don't know, like the fights obviously feel a lot different. There was a lot of talk about it before the movies came out. I really enjoyed the fights in this personally. Like I felt more engaged throughout the fight sort of thing of what was going on. and the story it tells in this is really, really interesting, and I really like it. Great acting throughout. Conan, I do want your opinion on Stallone. It seems like you've been waiting.
Yeah, you have an opinion on this, I feel like.
Oh, I have opinions. If there's one thing I have, it's opinions.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
Stallone apparently wanted the rights to Rocky, right? Which I think is a fair thing. He created the character. He gave us hours of joy. But one of the production companies, I don't fully understand how rights work in Hollywood, but basically he couldn't get the rights no matter what. They're owned by someone else. He can't get them. And so he withdrew. I think he withdrew, or it was kind of like that dispute of like, well, I don't want to be in this if I can't do that. And so they're like, cool, we're going to go ahead without you. And I think that sucks. I think they did Stallone dirty, even though he's not wanting for money. I just feel like that's, he should have some sort of stake in it. But I personally think no, okay, push back.
No,
You hate
so
Stallone?
no. I don't hate Stallone anymore.
Anymore.
I judged him previously, but like, so I had read something different though. I had read that
Okay.
like he didn't want to be involved based off like a dispute of like the script and like where it was going, and like he didn't like the way it was being told is what I could find when I googled it. Just like he didn't like the direction it was heading, and he said something about like Rocky should be a lot more upbeat and like this
Yeah.
triumph thing, and it was too dark for him or something like that. He thought, and I was like, oh, okay, that's weird. I was like, they'll have to address it somehow in the movie. They don't at all. So it's this weird thing that just is like kind of the elephant in the room. However, after watching the film, I really feel like he's not necessary in this film and in this story. Like,
Yeah, so
I think I agree, yeah.
random aside, like let's compare this to Wakanda Forever, just because I think they're the most recent examples where that is a movie that's clearly spends the whole film trying to address the absence of someone,
Yeah.
and that movie feels so hacky and so badly put together where it's like there are 15 different scripts that are mashed into one here. It makes no sense. You're right. This is a phenomenally good job at going. I don't know if they did have a script before this. Like I heard that story as well, and I don't know how much of that's true. I don't. Mine's mainly coming from a podcast of like.
It's the first result on Google when I just googled it now. So
That's as far as
I know. I find that kind of hard to believe that he read a script, was like, oh, this is bad. I'm out. I'm done with Rocky. And then they're like, well, we're going to rewrite the script and make it optimistic. That doesn't sit right to me. But I miss my version is from a podcast of like, it's a Hollywood Insider podcast, so I assume there's a bit more credence. It's just that makes more sense to me that there's an issue there with that. Regardless, they did a good job writing a story without Stallone. I totally agree. But nevertheless, the Spectre theory, which is now what I'm going to call Rocky, is like this film does kind of suffer from the the specter of his absence. I think there needs like Rocky is the constant emotional grounding. And like in his quarters, you've got Wood Harris who's filling in. And I'm like, he's good. Wood Harris is a really good actor. I've seen The Wire. I'm a big fan. But Rocky brings something to that. Like Rocky brings that kind of wisdom and that sort of I don't know, that stoicism and that like, look, here's the real world consequence to what's going to happen. And this like there is a lot of Michael B. Jordan is doing a lot of heavy lifting here that Rocky normally does. Like there are a lot of scenes of him being like, I don't want to talk about stuff. Here's my feelings, here's my past, here's my history. Like he does a lot of exposition in this, and I'm like, that's kind of Stallone's natural wheelhouse in these films, where he's like, hey, here's what it's like, here's how it goes. I can imagine how much better it would be if he was trying to talk to Creed. He's like, I know what it's like to run from the past. That's magnetic. Like right there, you're like, I do. You're like, I do, Rocky. I do. I get now why Creed will overcome this. But when Creed's like, I don't want to talk about it, and he has to sort of sit down with Bianca and have a long, long conversation and be like, we grew up in an abusive house. It's like, this doesn't feel as good. Like, I think Stallone really would have brought a really good element to this. And like, you just can't have a Rocky film without Stallone. It feels weird.
Yeah. I see your point, and I do think, as much as I love Tessa Thompson, like I think she's really good in these films. We haven't really talked about her yet. I think her and Michael B. Jordan have a really, really good chemistry together. Like they're really convincing as a couple to me. But particularly in the third movie, she feels She feels like she's almost too good. She's a therapist. She's his rock to lean on. Like, she's really good with his mum and his fam. Like, she's all these things. And I think if Rocky had been there to take away the therapy part almost,
Yeah.
it would she'd feel a bit more balanced, I guess, as a character.
Yep.
It doesn't feel like she has much of a character other than being that support for Creed. Like,
Yeah.
we don't get through her struggles or what she's going through or anything like that.
No.
Really. It's just
Yeah. We get it in comparison to Creed and to what's his Damien?
Dame. Yeah.
Because he talks to her at that party. He's like, "Be honest, how hard is it to see someone else sing your song?" And you can tell she's like, "Oh, no, that's good," but you can tell she still feels a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's exactly right. Like, she's kind of the bouncing board for a lot of the emotional storytelling in this one.
Yeah.
And that's Rocky's job, man.
Yeah.
Like,
it would have benefited from him, but I think they did well without him. They handled his Spectre pretty well, I think.
You are right about like Duke, as in like it didn't feel like there was a mentor role for Creed in this. Like, he didn't have like a mentor. It felt like he was, you know, just as an old dog going back in it alone.
Yeah. And like, there's an interesting thing that, what is the future of this franchise as a whole? And like, you can't always just have Rocky as the mentor.
No.
So it's like, at some point, maybe Creed does have to come out of it. It just feels a bit strange to have him completely vanished. And like, to me, I was kind of like, we're not even going to address it. Like, even just not even going to throw in like a, remember when Rocky, like, his cancer came back or something? Like,
yeah, I was going to be like, oh, I've lost Rocky and now I've lost my mum. There you go. At least we know what happened. Like, I don't know.
You can't kill him off screen, though. That feels even more.
And I wonder if they're hedging their bets and like, oh, he'll be back for the next one.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know what his excuse will be, but
why didn't he show up at like Creed's mother's funeral, sort of thing? Like, it just feels weird.
He was off. He was all right. Him and the Dragos go on a really nice holiday together because they've patched up their differences.
One of the Dragos is in this movie, though.
Yeah, he came back, man.
Him and Ivan, then. Just him and Ivan are off having like the sickest holiday, getting so drunk. They're doing blow off crackers and hookers, all right? They're doing it this time. All right. Do you guys like anime? Are you guys anime fans?
I love Dragon Ball Z.
I like anime, and I could we posted this thing that said he's based the fighting around anime and stuff like that, like it's inspired by anime. But I definitely felt it. I don't know about you guys, but I felt the influence and I liked it.
Yeah.
Like I said, look, the fights are interesting in this. Like, the first one's sort of like, it's like the chat he's analyzing, and he keeps seeing it, and he knows, like, okay, as soon as he does this, I hit him there. It felt kind of Sherlock Holmes, the Downey Jr. film.
Yeah,
but it was cool. It's like, that's a cool thing. We haven't seen that in Creed yet. And then, what did you guys think of the whole, like the main boss
in on them too?
Yeah,
the Shadow Realm. The Shadow
Realm, man.
Yeah, what's your thoughts?
I thought it was good. Like,
what I liked about that was that they go through all these stuff, and then all of a sudden it's like, all right, that's round. Now we're at round 12. Like, it literally, we see that's like they spend like 8 rounds in the Shadow Realm that we don't see, and it's just like, what the hell just happened? And they're like, what a fight we're seeing! This is insane. We're moving too fast for our human eyes to track.
It is pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they're more than just boxing physically, right? They're boxing emotionally. They're figuring out their issues with each other, and I like that transformation to there, and it works well as a fast forward device, right? Like, it works well as a time skip.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't know. As a directorial debut, like, there's some interesting ideas here, and I really appreciate it. I thought it was really, really well done.
It totally is. There's a lot of little flourishes that are pretty good. Like all the stylistic fighting stuff is cool. It's a really good idea to keep it fresh. There's a few scenes that are like, there's one scene where he comes to see Damien in the room, and he goes to leave, and they're basically on two sides.
Yes.
Shrouded in light, one's in darkness. They kind of look at each other, but there's a wall in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it's really cool. It's like, that's a really good framing thing. It's a little bit heavy-handed because like they literally look through the wall for a long time.
Yeah.
And, like, you shouldn't. And so it's like, you can tell he is a first-time filmmaker, but at the same time, it's like, hey, he has the confidence to do a shot like that. That's cool. Like, he knows to do stuff. And it feels like there is he has a flair and an eye for it, at least.
Yep. I'm dumb. Who was in the photo?
Yes.
What was the go with the photo that was like, oh, you've been out to get me since the start. What did I miss? Am I stupid?
You didn't get this, Luke? Did you get this? You didn't explain this?
I did not. We avoided talking about this in the car ride home because we knew we had to record a podcast about it tonight.
Oh no, yeah, that's the dude that takes out Drago at the club. Like you see him have a conversation with these guys, and then he goes over and attacks Drago and breaks his hand. And
there's and the camera shows that face for like 30 seconds, like this man has attacked him.
I assumed that straight away. I was like, that's going to be one of his mates from prison because they say he's just been locked up for the last 6 months or whatever on the news channel when he first attacks Drago. So I was like, that's going to end up being his friend that he's asked to take him out so he can be in the title fight. But yeah,
I didn't put that together. I recognized him. I didn't make that connection, but yeah. But what did you guys? I do want to talk about Jonathan Majors in general, but what did you guys think of the whole of Damien, his arc, his character?
I liked it. No, I thought it was really good. Like, it's a good way to give us stakes with a new villain, I suppose. And I thought it was going to be more of like an Apollo Rocky, kind of rivalry, friendship type thing. I thought that might have been where they were going, but then to
the turn.
I liked that it had the turn because I feel like it could have gone without the turn and had it as a rivalry type thing, but we've had that. So to give it that turn, I liked it.
Yep. That's the thing. Jonathan Majors is great.
Yes.
And I do really like that whole aspect of the thing, and that he is a dirty fighter. Like we see him beat the champ, and it's just like going at that arm, like illegally just like punched him in the arm, the elbow.
Yeah, how is this not getting pulled up?
Are you allowed to punch people in the arm? Is that okay?
It's frowned upon to like basically you can't grab someone's arm and punch them.
No, obviously that's not okay. And like sweeping their legs out so he can get in there is obviously not okay either. But why aren't more people punching arms? I feel like that's a good strategy.
Yeah, it's a good strat.
Yeah. I mean, it worked for him. He became champion in his first fight. But that's the thing. I really do like the contrast of the first Rocky, of him being this underdog and getting this this opportunity, but being the villain. Like it's like the villain underdog that's going to use underhanded tactics to win from the champion sort of thing, as opposed to Rocky being the heroic underdog sort of thing. It's a cool sort of story. But yeah, the turn and on the beach of him just completely changing like his tone towards Michael B. Jordan and being like, no, you betrayed me. And like, it's interesting that Michael B. Jordan like doesn't explain like I didn't actually have the letters, because it seems like he did just completely abandon him, and he doesn't confirm it. Just be like,
it's that thing we talked about of like, is this a miscommunication?
Yeah.
I just wish they'd been like, wait, you sent letters to my house? Like, yeah, okay, cool. Let me call my mom, see what happens. It's like, could have sorted this out.
Yeah.
And I guess that being the reveal of, you've been on this all along because you sent me that photo 2 years ago, is a bit of an odd. Like the timeline's weird there, but yeah.
Yeah, it's all a bit. I don't know. Like his turn, I didn't like the turn personally. I thought the whole, because this is, I guess, interwoven with Jonathan Majors. Like he is phenomenal in this. I was like, this dude is an absolute presence. Talking about movie stars, like this guy is everything.
He's
crap.
A conqueror, man.
He could conquer every universe, every quantum realm, every timeline.
Yeah,
like he is just so magnetic to watch. He's got this.
He steals the scene.
He does literally just his presence. He's just big, but he talks really quickly in this. He's disarming. Like, I don't know how much of that was a choice of his or how much was like Michael B. Jordan's. But he just brings an amazing performance to the character. And so watching the first sort of half of the movie where it's their kind of awkward friendship and something's up, it's so compelling. It's so good, right? Like and then I guess for me, it kind of bums me out because then it ends. He turns and he's just like, "Nah, I hate you," and he punches him. And he's like, "I don't need you anymore." And then we don't get him again for a while until he's like,
yeah. And that's the thing. Then he's just being antagonistic and like he's a bit of a joke. Here's the thing. I agree. I don't mind the turn, but I can 100% see like it being this thing of him. He takes out the champ by being dirty-handed, which isn't what Rocky did. It's not what Creed's style is. And Creed having this thing of being like, dude, you can't do it like that. And him being like, yeah, okay. And getting like an ego from that. And Creed being like, dude, you can't take these sort of shortcuts, this and that, and then him misconstruing that as this jealousy thing that now he's up and coming and he's doing this or whatever, and then them having their rivalry from there feels a bit more natural than like him to betray him after using him to get to a world championship fight.
Yeah, like I've been plotting my revenge for 18 years
and
in
it worked
prison.
out perfectly.
Yeah,
and I guess the turn back at the end where they kind of respect each other after their big fight doesn't make a lot of sense if he's been plotting to get him for 18 years. It makes more sense if they it's just their egos clashing.
Yeah.
But yeah,
which is a shame because that ending part is really nice. Like again, Major's kind of he's like on the verge of tears, and you can tell he's just like there's a lot going on there. God, that's good acting. And he's like, we were bad, we were kids, and it wasn't our fault. It's like that's really powerful stuff.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's almost like there's this motivation there, inspired by some sort of medium. It's called animation. I don't know where it comes from. Japanese animation, maybe.
Yes.
That's just a bit heightened and ridiculous. And like if they didn't have that, it would have been dope. It would have been great.
Sure. I liked how they kept him. He looked homeless and old and not terribly fit at the start. Like I liked that they kept him in baggy clothes and
he keeps that hoodie on even when sparring and training. And I'm like, he's going to reveal his shredded bodysuit and make them all.
And I mean, everybody's seen promotional images for this. We all know how shredded he is. So obviously the reveal was not a surprise, but it was nice. I thought it worked well.
Yeah.
Yeah. It adds to his whole deceitful sort of thing about it. They've been like,
yeah. He is in incredible shape though. When it's like he pulls it off and he's just got that like, I don't know, it feels like a 10-pack,
16-pack. Yeah.
I am like, what? How does the human body get like that? That's insane.
Yeah.
Yep.
Man. But yeah, this movie's really good. This movie's really exciting.
Yeah.
Like it was a lot of fun. And even though I was in a cinema and there was kids TikToking, and like
we had kids whistling during the emotional scenes. That's the experience we got.
Literally during that talking scene in the locker room afterwards, just whistling and just making noise and talking. The douchebags, you know who you were. In the back left.
I know you're listening.
If you're listening to this, grow up.
It's just like even with all that going on at yours and at mine, I was just like, you know what? It still works. I had a fun time.
Yeah,
good movie.
What do you guys reckon the future? Oh, sorry, you go.
I was about to ask the exact same thing.
So was I.
Yes, like the future of this franchise.
Yeah,
because towards the end of the film, I kept having this thing of like, man, he's coming out of retirement for this in number 3. I'm like, how are they going to do another 2 or 3 of these movies? You can't keep coming out of retirement for these personal vendettas with these other people who've betrayed. And then the end sort of shows you a future they can take with his daughter. And then maybe we have Rocky films in female boxing world. Like we get a female boxer helping train him in this one, and it's a bit different that she's sparring with him, and we see his daughter has that fierceness and wanting to learn and stuff like that. And I really feel like that's probably where we could see it going.
And she's deaf. Like there might be something. I appreciated how much this movie was in sign language. Like they went for it, and it worked. It worked really well to me.
It's never a big deal. They're never like, we had to learn sign language, and no one's like, good work. It just is. And they go to the school, and it's just like they're talking about school issues, but it's at a deaf school. So that's cool. You're rolling with it. It's just part of life. It's like, good work.
Yeah. I think I would be interested in just seeing Creed be a coach at some point. Probably not the next movie. Maybe that's the last movie. It's handing it on to his daughter. I mean, I don't know how many movies they're going to do. They're talking about a lot of them, though.
Yeah, I wonder if this has the same legs as Rocky did, right? Like the Rocky films, the 80s was a different time for movies. And so even though we're still in the franchise universe, I don't know how. I guess it depends what this movie does in terms of business. If this movie makes 200 mil, 300 mil, maybe.
In chronological order, the next one's when we get the robot come back and he has to go to another foreign country. Oh,
he's going to end the Russian-Ukrainian. He ends the Russian-Ukrainian war this time.
Versus a big new boxer with last name Putin.
Yeah. No, he's got to go to China. I reckon he's gonna cool over tensions with China.
Yep.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, I really wonder because, like, you can tell they're. I don't know if because it feels like they're kind of leading to a He's come out of retirement. He leaves the ring, and they got the whole shot where it's like he's leaving the ring for one last
back.
time.
Facing the
Yeah,
back.
it's like cool. This is a really nice closing chapter. It does feel natural to be like, yeah, okay, this is the next film is Amara, and it's following her.
Yeah.
Um,
Straight away, I started picturing like scenes that they'd have in that movie of like being deaf in the boxing ring and dealing with that added difficulty and that added challenge of like not hearing the bell ring or something. Like I don't know, there's stuff that can be done or told. No,
just
told
keep
differently. I
swinging.
don't
It's
know.
like disqualified.
No,
Get in
but
here.
like like disadvantages or whatever. Like
How do you
yeah.
sign with gloves on? You can't.
Yes,
That's true.
what if she
Yeah,
needs?
is there deaf boxing? Like,
I mean,
wonder,
imagine she'd be part of the Paralympics, right? I don't know if that would qualify you or not.
it's a good question.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Don't know.
Do you think Adonis is like, no, I want something better for you, like Rocky did for his kids, and so on and so forth? Like,
They hint at that, right?
yeah,
that
but they
tension here
said
where,
they hinted him being willing to train her, which, you know,
well, yeah,
Who wants
like
to train?
that's the thing. They hint at like, look, she can't just keep punching everybody. But in the end, it's like you can keep punching everybody. Punching everyone has solved all the issues so far. So
In 9 films, it's usually been
yeah,
the end
there's
result
never
to
been
solve the
there's
problem.
never been a problem.
I mean, it
Like,
ended the war, the Cold War, so
yeah.
you can't really say it didn't.
Yeah, what
I mean,
more could you want?
yeah, it literally ended this emotional, you know, issue between Creed and Jonathan Majors. Like, it's the only way he's going to stop him. It's to fight him.
Like the whole boxing genre, right? Like it's got a big legacy in cinema, and it's really kind of linked with the whole like the idea of like the warrior poet and like masculinity is always like it's always explored through that and like what does this mean to be a man in society, and that's both problematic but also interesting nonetheless. And like I wonder what that looks like if they bring it in. It's like a female boxing movie. Like what does that look like? Because part of it, I guess, is it the exact same? Do they translate the same over? It's like she has those same things, or does it become more about her deafness? Like that would be really because the only other one I could think of is something like $1 Million Baby.
I was going to say $1 Million Baby is another female boxing movie, isn't it?
It is,
Yeah.
and that is a despair fueled like horror
I
fest.
still haven't recovered from that film.
It's
I've never seen it. I should watch it.
Oh, dude.
Or maybe I shouldn't watch it.
yeah, it's
Watch it.
good, but man, it is depressing. Yeah. I just be super. It's an interesting thing to see where it would go with that, because even all these movies are like, what does it mean? What does it mean for a son to be in his father's shadow? And like, it's a loaded term, but like masculinity runs through all these movies, and so to change that direction I'm not saying it's the right or the wrong way, but it would be a big shift for it. It'd be super fun to see where they go with that.
Yeah, I'm keen to see where they go because I like that Michael B. Jordan seems invested in this trilogy, and now he's directing as well. Like, I like when an actor likes what they're doing. I think it always generates, or the creative team likes what they're doing. It always seems to generate a better product.
Sure.
And the Kuglers are back involved in this as well. So, if that team keeps going, hopefully we keep getting good movies.
Does Rocky come back?
I think they would take him if he wanted to come back. I think they would have him.
I don't know.
It is weird though.
I honestly think Stallone has a bit of an ego. I think they would have to come back, like they have to come groveling. And I don't think that anyone in the team really cares that much. Like this film kind of shows it, right? That they're just like, we will not acknowledge it at all. We'll essentially be like, Rocky's never existed almost. And so I don't think they would really like bend over backwards for him. And I don't think he's going to be like, I want to come back, please.
Yeah, it's unlikely he's going to come back on their terms. It seems like, right? Like,
yeah. So it'd be cool if they did work something out, or like, but I just don't see it happening.
It's a shame we'll never get like a Rocky versus Apollo Creed, Adonis Creed.
Adonis Creed.
That's the next movie.
Yeah,
he's like, you forgot about me, didn't you?
You went a whole film without mentioning me. Oh, we got to fight about it. That's the story.
All right. Let's rank them. 1, 3, 2, just like Metacritic.
1, 3, 2.
Yeah.
Yep.
2 is just a bit too. It feels too samey, but it's kind of like Rocky 2. It's like it's very similar, but it's like nothing here feels quite as meaningful.
Yeah.
And the best stuff it's never fully executed. Whereas
Yeah.
in 3, like they got
Oh, sorry. You go. Finish.
like 3's got an amazing performance in Mages, and it's got stylish. Like it's got style, and it's got something to say.
Is Majors the best villain of these 3 films?
And, these 3, yeah, like Pretty Boy Conlon just doesn't matter.
No, he doesn't.
I
You're
like
right.
that he's in at the start of this film and gets knocked out. He gets his win over him.
Yeah.
I do like that.
But like his whole villain, he's really there just as like you need a villain, and then
Drago's cool, but
he's a real non-character. Like his son's not really a character in the second one. It's very
No.
much like Ivan is the focus.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think Mages is definitely the best out of these 3.
Yeah. All right. Next fortnight, our plan is to do Scream 6. And we'll talk about 5 as well, because we didn't talk about that during our Scream podcast.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can go and see it, because it's not coming to us locally, but we'll see how we go. We managed it for this one, so hopefully we'll be able to do it again.
Oh, wow.
Thank you for joining us for the good, the bad, and the worst. If you like this podcast, you might like Bonus XP. That's our other podcast where we are currently talking about The Last of Us, the hit TV show. I know there's no other podcasts about it, so join us as we review each episode. There's a couple of game fans and one non-game fan. No, I like it too, but, I'm not as big into it as these other guys, but it's a great show. It's a lot of fun talking about it. Please rate us, like us on socials, rate us on Spotify. This podcast was brought to you by The Taste of Iron by CV Clark.
Boxing.
Check it out on Amazon. Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you next time.
Peace.
So long.